Welcome to Sunday Assembly Nashville. Do me a favor, I need everybody to stand up and clap along with us as we sing this first song. The words are on the screen so you can sing along, clap along. Should be fun. Let's get this going. Here we go. Sing along with me. The woman on the radio talks about revolution when it's already passed it by. Sing about you know it feels good to be alive. I was alive and I waited. I was alive and I waited for this right here, right now. Alright, I'm going to take this moment to welcome to the stage with me the host of today's Sunday Assembly, Mr. Landry Butler. Let's give him a hand. Landry's going to help me close out this song. I went down to the demonstration to get my fair share of abuse. We're singing and we'll vent our frustration. If we don't, I'm coming for abuse. Well, you can't always get what you want. Yeah, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You try sometimes, you might try. What you want. Yeah, you can't always get what you want. 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 You might get always get what you want. You might get sometimes you might try.
Sunday Assembly Nashville! Sunday Assembly Nashville in the house! We just want to thank you all for showing up, being here today as we talk about choices. A good friend of mine, a philosopher, Albert Camus, talked about how every morning we wake up and we're faced with a choice between two things. Do we want to get out of bed and do what we have to do in life, or are we just going to kill ourselves? Everyone that's here has made the choice to get out of bed and do what they have to do. And we're going to celebrate that. We're going to celebrate that choice. We are Sunday Assembly Nashville, a secular congregation that celebrates life.
Yeah.
Our motto is live better, help often, and wonder more. Our mission is a Sunday Assembly in every town, city, and village that wants one. And our vision is to help everyone live as fully as possible. So I want to thank you all for coming out today. We have an amazing program. Blake Farmer is our featured speaker. We'll also hear from Greg Fokin, John McFarland, Pat Sharp, Kathy Maxwell, and of course the Unnamed Assembly Band. Greg, John, and Pat, if you'll make your way to the stage, please. And while they're on their way up here, can they just get everyone who is here for the first time, can you raise your hand, please? How many people? Yes! Yes, keep your hands up. They're coming on up to the stage. Come on up, nice people. David's counting, so keep your hands up.
The road not taken. Oops, sorry, just kidding. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had worn them very about the same. And both that morning, equally late, in leaves no steps had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Often rebuked, yet always back returning, by Emily Bronte. Often rebuked, yet always back returning to those first feelings that were born with me, and leaving busy chase of wealth and learning for idle dreams of things which cannot be. Today, I will seek not the shadowy region its unsustaining vastness waxes drear, and visions rising, legion after legion, bring the unreal world too strangely near. I'll walk, but not in old heroic traces, and not in paths of high morality, and not among the half-distinguished faces, the clouded forms of long past history. I'll walk where my own nature would be leading. It vexes me to choose another guide. Where the gray flocks in ferny glens are feeding, where the wild wind blows on the mountainside. What have those lonely mountains worth revealing? More glory and more grief than I can tell. The earth that wakes one human heart to feeling can center both the worlds of heaven and hell.
I left the woods for as good a reason as I went there. Perhaps it seemed to me that I had several more lives to live and could not spare any more time for that one. It is remarkable how easily and insensibly we fall into a particular route and make a beaten track for ourselves. I had not lived there a week before my feet wore a path from my door to the pond side. And though it is 5 or 6 years since I trod it, it is still quite distinct. It is true, I fear, that others may have fallen into it and so helped to keep it open. The surface of the earth is soft and impressible by the feet of men, and so with the paths which the mind travels. How worn and dusty then must be the highways of the world. How deep the ruts of tradition and conformity. I did not wish to take a cabin passage, but rather to go before the mast and on the deck of the world, for there I could best see the moonlight amid the mountains. I do not wish to go below now. I learned this, at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. He will put some things behind, will pass an invisible boundary. New, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him, or the old laws be expanded and interpreted in his favor in a more liberal sense, and he will live with the license of a higher order of beings. In proportion as he simplifies his life, the laws of the universe will appear less complex, and solitude will not be solitude, nor poverty poverty, nor weakness weakness. If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now, put the foundations under them.
That was beautiful. Thank you all three of you for sharing that with us. And next up is our featured speaker today, Blake Farmer. Blake, where are you, Blake? Hey, there he is. Blake's going to come up and talk to us about some things that he talks about. That's what he does. He talks for a living. Very good talker. He's going to talk for a while. Blake is from Nashville. Went away to Texas, went to ACU in Abilene, Texas. And because Nashville is kind of like Hotel California, you can't really leave. And so Blake is back. And he's going to share a few thoughts with us today. Come on up here, Blake, and do your thing.
Oh, excellent. Well, I may talk for a living, but usually when you hear me on the air, I'm reading a script. So it's, dangerous, no script. And I have to make a joke that my church has never asked me to preach. So, you know, I had to I'm really honored to be here this morning. I must say that I'm kind of reminded of one of the first national stories that I did. So this was about 10 years ago, was about a guy named Hemant Mehta. Does anybody know Hemant? Oh, cheers! See, at my church, maybe 1 or 2 people would know him. But yeah, so you know the Friendly Atheist already, and I had read, I guess, in the Wall Street Journal this story about how he was selling his soul on eBay, and so I said, you know, it may have already been done, but that story doesn't get old. So he ends up selling his soul, and this guy from Seattle, kind of a progressive pastor from Seattle, ends up, I don't know what it was, $600 or $700 that he paid. And I think Hemant had agreed to do, like, go to a church service for every $10 or something. So the guy was like, don't worry about that, but let's do 10 services. And so he found 10 services in the Chicago area where Hemant lives, all different kinds of churches, from like a Catholic service to sort of a black gospel church to a Presbyterian church. And then the final Sunday, I went up to Chicago, and the pastor from Seattle flew in too, and we went all together to the final service, which was at this Vine church. And I don't know a ton about the sort of Vine movement, but anyway, he knew what he was doing when he sent Hemant to this place for the final service, because it was interesting. Nothing really out of the ordinary. It looked a whole lot like this, frankly, at first, and then near the end, there began these healings. And so this is precisely why he wanted Hemant to go see this. And you know, the person on stage was sensing that there were some people with back problems, and they got up and they were praying and laying on hands. And, you know, Hemant was just sort of blown away. We like walked over to a McDonald's quickly after and sort of debriefed about this thing. And he just said, you know, this is exactly it. I like everything I see, and then all of a sudden something throws me way off track. You know, something I just can't believe in, you know. Anyway, but the thing that really struck me about Hemant was he was not like rolling his eyes about this whole experience. You know, he liked a lot of the community that he saw in these churches. And I think 10 years ago, this predates the Sunday Assembly movement, correct? It was exactly this kind of thing, I think, that he was looking for. I imagine maybe he's involved with one in Chicago now. I only follow him on Twitter, so I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm really impressed and inspired with what it is you all do. And I'm sad to say I haven't done a story about it by now, so maybe there'll be a good excuse to do that in the near future. I'm here to, the theme is choices, right? Well, a choice was made. Well, not a choice. A choice is still going to be made, but are most people Davidson County residents here? I met folks who were from Murfreesboro. I felt sad. I thought, I didn't bring any juice from Murfreesboro, although I was there the other day for when they were guarding the recruiting stations. I was there for a story. But so I'm talking a little bit about the mayor's race. Hopefully we can make it bigger than Davidson County. But I think anyone who lives in this area cares who the mayor is, you know, because I think the fact that Carl Dean's been mayor for the last 8 years makes a difference for the entire region. Well, so just to get you up to speed, there were 7 candidates. Now there are 2. There's a runoff. No one got 50%. No one expected to get 50%. So we have this really intense period. Early voting for the runoff actually starts the 21st. So what is that? Like less than 2 weeks away. And election day is September 10th. So open your mailboxes and just get ready for the flood of mailers. So I have 5 points, just in case you can count me down. So if you're nodding off, you'll know when we're near the end. Point number 1 is this. So there were 7 candidates, which I think made it really hard for voters. I mean, it made it hard for me, and I interviewed all of them several different times. I know them well. I probably changed my mind 3 times before actually casting a vote. Here's what I have to say about having 7 candidates. Highly successful people who wanted to run for mayor, and I consider running for mayor a little bit like pledging a fraternity or sorority or something. I mean, the things these people have to go through, you know, they have to go sweating door to door, begging people to vote for them, but not begging too hard as to put them off. They have to accept any invitation that someone makes to come speak to a crowd. I'm sure you probably could have gotten them, you know, in front of your audience if you want to. You know, these people, I think when people get into the race, all of a sudden folks start questioning motives. Oh, they just want that. Oh, it's just a stepping stone. Oh, whatever it is. I'll tell you what, I don't know, maybe motives are questionable at first, but if you've made it the whole way, you better want to be mayor, because so many of these people put in, you know, more than $1 million of their own money. And these are not necessarily, not all of them, the richest people in town. These are folks who really have put themselves out there. And so for the 7 people who ran, I have all kinds of respect for what they did. And I think, here's my main point, it says a lot about the city that there are 7 highly successful people who really wanted to lead this city for the next 4 or 8 years. And so I think it says a lot about our town, and so, you know, I'm kind of saying let's all pat ourselves on the back for that one. Yeah. All right, yes. Number 2. Oh no, I've already lost you. Have I? All right, it's okay. Number 2. So there were I don't know if you were paying attention, there were all these forums where you get, sometimes the crowd was hardly there. I mean, as I say, if you're running for mayor, you have to accept any invitation. So they would have these forums. All 7 candidates would be lined up, elbow to elbow, answering some of the same questions. They could answer the question for the person next to them. You know, I mean, they had been together that many times, more than 50 different forums where they'd gotten together. You know, I was guilty of being part of the problem because I moderated several of them. But, you know, by the end, everyone's saying, well, why are we doing this? What is it? I'll tell you, I actually think that it was really good. It evened the playing field. Everybody sits on the same stage, gets to sort of say the same answers in front of a group. You know, the news outlets get to cover those to some degree. And there were ideas that came out of those that I'm not sure people would have come up with without it. That they were asked very specific questions to respond to, where they said, you know, for instance, somebody started talking about a municipal ID for immigrants who, there are other cities that have done this kind of thing, where immigrants who have trouble getting an ID, the city comes up with its own form of identification, so at least within the city, for city services, they can use this card and get services. You know, somebody starts talking about that, another person starts talking about that and saying, yeah, I kind of stole this idea from the person next to me here, but I like it. There were several times where people started talking about things and everybody sort of rallied around and said, yeah, that's a good idea. So I think no matter who becomes mayor, some of the ideas that came out of these forums will probably sort of shape what our next mayor does. All right, point number 3. We've moved on from the forums. Let's talk about money. Oh man, there was so much money, way more money than any race before, which I think is, journalists were kind of guilty of saying, record-setting money spent on this election. Well, it's like, guess what? Every election is like 4 or 8 years later, and inflation, I mean, people spend more money. So it's not that big of a deal, but I mean, way more money was spent on this election. We don't have the final tallies, but it's going to be over $13, $14, $15 million combined through all of them. You know, tons of money. Say what you want about money in a race, but money did not win the day. The guy who put the most money into the race, raised the most money, came in 3rd. The next person down, who raised the second amount of most money, came in 5th. So, you know, it says a lot. You know, I love talking to voters after they've cast their ballot, and I come up to them. Maybe I've done to some of you. I don't recognize you as someone who I've asked this question, but I'll say, hey, do you mind if I bug you for a second? Blake Farmer with Public Radio. We love to talk to voters on Election Day. And then I basically work my way into asking them who they voted for. A question that I would not answer myself. But it was very clear for some of them that they had seen commercials and that was how they made their decision. But many others, they obviously had done their homework, or they had asked their friends who they should vote for, which was way more common than you would think. And people did their homework. You know, we at WPLN decided to cover the mayor's race sort of wall to wall. Our news director, Anita Bugg, had kind of sort of put a stake in the ground and said, you know what, we're going to cover this mayor's race. We're going to ask all the questions. We're going to profile all the candidates, all 7 of them. And so we had a body of work, I don't know, 50 or 60 different sort of stories, posts, issues, profiles. We put it, when we started doing it, you know, like in December last year, it was a little hard to get excited about because no one cared about the mayor's race. And then as you moved along, you could tell that people were, I could just tell from my own life that people started asking, so who do you think I should vote for mayor? Which I didn't suggest anyone, but you could tell that people really started to clue in. My point here, the 4th point if you're counting, is this. People may have been slow to engage, but I think people really got interested in this race down the home stretch because you sort of realize how important who the mayor is. You know, I mean, this next mayor is going to be the person who recruits, I would think, our next superintendent of schools. You know, this is a person who, I mean, you look at Carl Dean. If Carl Dean hadn't won, maybe the Music City Center wouldn't have been built. I don't know. There are all kinds of things that a mayor affects, and people got really interested. You could even see from our website, we in public radio, we try not to look at analytics too closely. You know, that's for those commercial people. But we look at it some on the web. And our page that we put together that had all of our mayoral coverage, even the night before Election Day, it was just through the roof. I mean, people were in there going through the issue stories, through the profiles, trying to make their decision. So I'm encouraged because I think people really cared and tried to be thoughtful about this race. All right, final point. This race between Megan Barry and David Fox is going to be fascinating. So Megan Barry is, you know, she's a real sort of progressive leader. I mean, that is sort of her bread and butter. I mean, she is out front on, you know, I mean, she married the first gay couple in Davidson County. She was down there at the courthouse. She is, you know, sort of a leader on pro-abortion rights. You sort of name the progressive liberal issue, and she's sort of out there, out front. David Fox, she's a Metro Council member, an at-large Metro Council member, or won't be anymore. But David Fox, former school board chairman, used to work for a hedge fund that his brother owns. He, you know, when he was over the school board, it was a tumultuous time, if you'll recall. I think it was 2006. I mean, it was at a time where there was state takeover possibilities. He advocated that Carl Dean take over the school system, in effect. It was really kind of a crazy time, and then he helped hire Jesse Register, who just retired from the school system. But he is definitely more of a conservative. I mean, I think he would say he's voted in Republican and Democratic elections. Or for Democratic candidates. He really talks about the debt of the city a lot, although we haven't gotten him to sort of say, well, if there's so much debt and that's a problem, then what would you not have spent money on? It doesn't quite go there. So, you know, we'll press him on that more in the next couple of weeks. And then, you know, he would say that on the social issues that he really is a centrist. And you could tell even on election night how this thing was going to sort of play out. David Fox starts throwing barbs Megan Barry's way, saying, listen, she is way left of where this city is, and I am sort of more where Nashville is. And then Megan Barry was saying, no, this is a guy who's trying to buy this election. He's put a lot of his own money into it. And, you know, he's going to, Bill Freeman's campaign had sort of tried to characterize him as sort of this Tea Party Republican, which I love to quote from somebody over at the scene that said, if he's a Tea Party Republican, then, you know, the Tea Party Republicans are going to sort of laugh him out of the room. But it is going to feel a whole lot more like a partisan race, I think, than mayor's races usually do. So it's going to be fascinating. Outside money, you know, there was outside money from David Fox's brother, from these super PACs. I don't know who might get involved for Megan Barry, but it is going to be fascinating. And, you know, it's the kind of thing that gets me excited. You know, election night, you stay up way late. But you can because you're so excited you can't wait to hear the results. So it's going to be a big choice for Nashville. I imagine the people in this room are probably the folks who are really engaged already, so I don't have to convince you of that. But it'll be fun watching alongside of you, and I appreciate you all having me here today. Thanks.
Blake knows this, but their program director, Carl, what is he? Program director?
He's the vice president of something.
Vice president of something. I don't know.
An engineer. He kind
Yeah, he's a friend of mine from a long time ago. His wife was my 4th grade teacher. I think I was in her first class, and she mysteriously quit teaching after that. I think she had a baby, but it didn't have anything to do with me. All right, moment of reflection. We're going to pause for a little moment of reflection. All the great information which you've shared with us, think about that. Think about the fact that it's Sunday in August in Nashville and it's not 500 degrees outside. Only 350. Yes. And do we have a slide for that? For the moment of blah-blah-blah? It's behind me now. Ah, beautiful. I love it when that happens. According to author James Surowiecki, who wrote The Wisdom of Crowds, these criteria, which are going to come up here in a second, talk about what separates wise crowds from irrational crowds. Because